Okay, welcome everyone to Workflows. I'm author Elizabeth Ann West. I also run Future Fiction Academy, where it is a group of authors trying to stay on the cutting edge of all this AI stuff that's coming down the pipeline. And I also do the advanced classes for Sudowrite. And I do some of the prompting and stuff on the back end for some of your favorite tools now, like Story Engine and soon coming Rewrite 2.0, which is very exciting. So I can't wait for that to come down the pipeline here in the next couple of months. So today we're going to be talking a lot about, it's kind of like a dance in a way of going between all of these different things. And a lot of times when I'm writing with AI, I just feel like I'm the secretary. And my job is just to try to keep track of what I'm doing, when I'm doing in the moment and everything like that. We did have a question right before I clicked record that I'll try to play a little bit with. Z, if it's okay, when I get to it, I'll ask you for it. So if you could pull up your Sudowrite, I'll ask you for some examples in the chat of what you're sticking in chat in style box. And what I meant to ask you too is, did you have anything in synopsis and outline, synopsis and characters when you were asking these things, or are you running it pretty Spartan? Okay. So yes. So the question that was before the chat is about these boxes on Story Engine. And so we can talk about those first to start off with. And if anyone else has any more questions about workflows and things like that, just bring them to the chat, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you and we can talk about them. So let's talk about these boxes and how the AI actually works. And I'll try to replicate what I think people were doing, but Z, feel free to let me know that I've gotten it wrong. So this is going to be the workflows class. We always rename it, and it is 717. Somebody else in the chat asked if we can change the default opening. That would be something to take to Slack and ask them. That's a feature that you want, but at the moment you can't change that. It's always going to have the cards in the order in which they were last played with, kind of last opened or something like that. So this is workflow 717. I'm going to go ahead and jump straight into Story Engine. And I believe the problem was that if I go tragedy in style, and then we'll go with triumphant, and then fast paced, and then tragedy again, like that's what you guys were doing. Okay. And I don't know is Nicole here today? I think she said she had to miss today, but I'm not sure. Okay. Now, do you guys have anything else in these other boxes when you're playing with this? No. So you're running all the rest of the boxes empty. Okay. Well, that's not entirely possible because you have to have something in the outline here or the chapters aren't going to run. So you just click generate a novel outline. You can go ahead and unmute if you want.
I go from the beginning.
Ooh.
Sorry, I go from the beginning, brain dump. Then I follow Nicole's.
Okay, so wait, what are you putting in brain dump?
Brain dump is like a synopsis of the entire novel, like a draft from beginning to end. Very sparse, very non-detailed anyway, but with all the names that I wanted to continue generating throughout the process anyway, the basic names, the characters anyway, and their relation to one another and to the place that they are in. And then after that, I go to the styles and genre. In genre, I just write down right now, setting -- science fiction, space opera, themes, horror, and existentialism. Sorry for the accent, by the way.
No,
Structure -- action. Now I have only 3. I used to have like about 5 or 6 descriptions, and I noticed that I was changing everything around into a happy story, which I didn't want it. And then following Nicole's instructions, I go tragedy, then 1 space down, the next description, 1 space down. I don't put a comma in between. I just go 1, 2, 3 below. Tragedy, tense, uneasy mood, fast pacing, apocalyptic, simple and concise sentences with occasional longer ones for detail, period. Natural and realistic dialogue, period. 1 space down, philosophical, 1 space down, requiring themes of conflict, distrust between nations. 1 space down, action / pack cosmic horror.
Okay.
And then the last two.
I'm getting the idea. I'm not going to put everything in the box, so I'm not going to
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
So you're putting everything in brain dump, all the information about the story, and then you are doing her methodology with the different spaces, and
Yes,
then
like one,
you
two,
do
three.
nothing in synopsis.
Match styles. No, except I press generate. I don't know if that's
For
a
synopsis.
description. Yes.
Yeah. So
After I finish.
all you guys are doing is you're threading the needle here on this left side. These boxes fill into this, and with AI, even if you were using ChatGPT, for example, when you have a sequence, it reads top down. So if there's no other prioritization, or you're not asking for any other like overriding story structure or anything like that, it is going to default to whatever the sequence is that you stuck it in, because that is a natural sequence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that goes hand in hand with what somebody else was asking in the chat. The moment the AI does not have any way of prioritization unless you tell it to prioritize. I have been a little bit of a at fault actor, because I mean, a lot of times when I'm watching it, it seems like it's thinking, right? Like we watch the little spin and we're really impressed with the results and we think that it's thinking. It's not actually thinking. It's not actually making, thinking in the sense of like doing roundabout things. It's literally just reading the instructions, and then it is generating the tokens based on the instructions that were there. So top down is one of the methodologies there that it's going to go into. And I have taught that for a long time as well with your prompt engineering. If something's very, very important, it's a very important instruction, make sure it's one of the last things that the AI reads, because that's going to overrule anything that was higher up. So that's that. Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, I don't remember whether it was you or Mira in one of these sessions, but I've got a situation where I know what my Act 1 is, I know what my Act 3 is. It's a thriller, and I'd like the AI to create a lot of obstacles for my protagonist. Do you have any suggestions on what would make it work better, to get that kind of result?
Yeah, that's not going to be in Story Engine, unless you just put Act 1 thing in brain dump and maybe Act 3 to work it. What you may want to do is bring your outline into here. So you would have Act 1. Okay. And all of your chapters. And then down here, you would have Act 3 and all of your chapters. But truthfully, if I was working with this, I would take it to chat and I would ask it. I would give Act 1, I would give Act 3, and I would ask the chat to say, give me 3 ideas for Act 2 to fill this in the middle here. So right. To fill in the middle. So it can't understand that process there. So that's a workflow. That's part of the workflows of this, one of the things for this class. When Sudowrite doesn't have a tool exactly matching what I'm trying to do with AI, I will go ahead and use Chat GPT to help me, or Claude, for example. So I will use Chat GPT. Oopsies, if I could type today. No, I don't want function calls. You guys can tell what I've been researching. So let's go to chat. So I'm going to ask 3.5, because this is not me suggesting we do this. I was not prepped with this for this question before the class, and I'm trying to show how you would workflow with it. Okay. So I'm not actually recommending you use 3.5 for your outlines. I'm just trying to give us some tools, some materials to work with. So I'm just going to say, write me a thriller outline, but only give me Acts 1 and Act 3. And I know I misspelled but it'll figure it out. So when you get this basic outline, Fatal Web, San Rivas. Okay, cool. And so I have this Act 1 and Act 3. Note, Act 2 is crucial for character development, increasing tension and building suspense, in case you didn't know. Sarah and Jack, good old Sarah and Jack, facing numerous obstacles. So this is not an actual outline. It probably has many problems with it, but let's pretend that this was what I was coming with as an author. I have Act 1, I have Act 3. I would do a new chat. So I would bring my information in here. I would probably use ChatGPT 4 for this methodology. And I would go read this outline, and I would do a colon, and I would paste it in. And then our favorite word, dinkus, put in those 3 dots. Okay. the three asterisks or something just helps to separate the information in chat from the instruction that you're going to give it. I hold down the shift key and press enter, by the way, in this box, and that's what allows me to get just to that next line. So once I do that, then I will say, give me 3 options for Act 2, fully outlined and fleshed out with details. Go. And I'm asking for 3 options because you said you wanted lots of obstacles. So this would allow you to give you 3 Act 2s, and then you could pull and pick and choose from the ones that you like. So option 2, and now it's going with what happens here. Does that help, Ed?
That was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and then you just paste those in to your outline, put it in the formatting that Sudowrite needs, and you can pop that into your outline as a workflow, and you can run it with Story Engine. Melissa has more to share in the chat too. I'm reading that to make sure you're just asking. Okay. 7 possible scenes. Yeah, that's really cool too for you to do that. All right, so let's hop into workflows a little bit. So there is a lot of power here on Sudowrite proper. Since I don't have any more questions that anyone wanted me to go over before I start kind of running into this. Okay. So workflows. One of the first hacks that I do as far as workflows goes is I'm going to come out of this and just kind of show you a little bit of a tour of my stuff. So one of the workflows that I shared on YouTube in the write-a-thon is running 2 story engines at once. And that is where I have, see this, The Gentleman Is Mine, A and B. So I'm going to open this one in a new tab, and I'm going to open this one in a new tab. So here I have The Gentleman Is Mine, A, and then over here I have The Gentleman Is Mine, B. Now you'll notice this one's pretty sparse. There's absolutely like not hardly anything in it. There's one document. If I go to the story engine though, it's a different story. So these 2 documents, the story engine actually matches word for word, what's in style, what's in synopsis, what's in genre, what's in characters, and what's in outline. They're both going to completely match. So you'll see how this outline also has nothing here because I already wrote those and I was working on Act 3. The reason I will run 2 story engines sometimes is because while one of them is running Prose, so what you do is the one that is not going to run Prose, let's say I like to do where the beta one runs my even chapters and my alpha one runs my odd chapters. So if I need to run chapter 16 right here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open up a chapter 16, boop, and go create chapter, and I'm going to generate the beats. Once those beats are generated, if I was midstream, the other story engine should have a set of beats already generated. And so basically I would tell that to go ahead and run a chapter so that in one tab I have a chapter running, and then in the other tab I have beats that I'm validating. This is a very advanced workflow. It can get confusing what you're working on. People got to see this live on YouTube and it was a little chaotic. But if you're on deadline or you're just trying to get a lot of words done, so I'm not going to run these quite yet. What I would do here, we'll pretend this is going to do 16, and then over here, we'll have this one do 17. Okay, so 17 is already here and it hasn't run yet. So that's perfect. So 17, we'll pretend I validated those beats and those are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and click run best prose. So it's going. And then over here, while that's running, basically, I'm over here and I'm manually changing my beats. Elizabeth takes a walk in the garden to clear her mind, but it's interrupted by a sudden downpour of rain. And an even faster way that you can manage these, well, I'll show that in just a second because it's still running on the other one. Now, a big important thing is that I cannot click generate here. If I click generate here, it will mess up this one that's still going. So you always have to check to make sure your other story engine's done generating before you click generate in the next story engine. Does anyone else run more than one story engine as a workflow? Lynn does. Yeah, it's a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I when I first like we could run two. It's a lot. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Elizabeth. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. I tried to, but I think you just answered the question. I was like trying to do it, and it like every time I go to the other one, it would stop running. But I think it's like I have to stop the Prose generating first before I go to the other one because it kept stopping and it would pause like every time I'd go to the beta, say.
Oh, like
if
if I go here, yours isn't still running in the other tab?
Yeah, it'll stop, and then when I come back, I see that it's paused, wherever I left. But so
Did you click generate on this side on anything?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, but go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, if you click generate right here,
Mhm.
it'll stop it. So
It'll stop.
you have to generate your beats first for you to edit them, and then click this to run. So like the other tab can't also be generating you AI while the other one is running you AI.
Okay, good.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
That's exactly what I think I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
it's a very important thing. So if you only have one Sudowrite account, you can't do this with both things generating at the same time. You have to have one thing generating and then the other one you're just manually typing. So my methodology here is generate the beats first in the one that you're not going to be generating prose in. Get those beats going, or get those beats laid out that need to be beefed up, handwritten, fixed, and all that. In the other tab, you run the prose, and while the prose is running, basically, you can be cleaning up your beats and everything. It kind of saves a little bit of time so that you're not, sitting there waiting for most accurate or for best prose to run, especially if you're running really long scenes like I often do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I was just like, it kept pausing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yep.
I think I was generating. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope,
Thank
you didn't
you.
miss a lot, Dave. We just got started. We were just talking about running more than one Sudowrite. Manon asked a question, if do most people generate the beats and not write them out? Or Mason, I'm sorry, did. I think it depends on the writer, Mason. All different kinds of people do different things. Ray, I was going to get to you on your hand. I just had to answer the chat questions that came first before you raised your hand. So people do generate their beats. Some of them do write them out. One of the reasons I like to generate them, now I'll show you guys what another workflow. You can grab this, your beats. I just am copying it, or you can click the copy button right here. And then if I come into Sudowrite proper, which very soon you're not going to have to go back and forth, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Add new. It's not super soon, but they're working on that. Very, very soon. They're working on having this better integrated so that Story Engine and Sudowrite just feel like it's all harmonious and working together. I can paste those beats in, and I'll go ahead and rename my document here. Beats for chapter 16. So now that I have this, I'm actually going to take that out. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste and match style. If you right click and paste and match style, that's going to help them be sequential. You said just tell the other one when I paste, if I just press paste, let me Command Z and I'll undo that. If I just paste them in, it's ugly. It's ridiculous. And these numbers, like, I don't know about you, but my brain does not work like this, where the lines are all running into each other. 2 and 3 and 4 are in line with all the rest. So, but if you're on a Mac, you just right click and paste and match style. PC is a different thing, but I think it's like Control Shift paste or something like that. But you're going to paste and match style there, and then it'll be in the same format that it was in the other place that you were. Okay, so here I have this information, so I can put a little bit of a header up at the top here and go, this is the outline or a scene or a Regency romance. Pride and Prejudice variation. Now, at the moment, this has no information about my characters. It has no information about my setting. It has no information that's in Story Engine. This is completely 100% siloed from anything in the Story Engine world. Eventually, that's going to change. But for right now, that's what the situation is. So you can put information here at the top of the scene. Another good idea here is if I come over, because it doesn't know what the summary of the scene is. It doesn't know what it's supposed to do. I can come over to chapter 16 and bring over that summary. So I'm just copying and pasting. That's all I'm doing right now. And putting it here. Now you're probably asking yourself, Elizabeth, why are you doing that? Why are you bringing this information over? Well, Sudowrite, the original Sudowrite, a lot of the tools over here look at 1,000 words up and down. How many of you have learned that a lot with the original Sudowrite classes, the very beginning Sudowrite classes, right? Yeah. So if I bring this information in here, it's only 300 words, everyone. So working with 300 words over on this side of Sudowrite is fantastic because you can control exactly what it knows. And now you have some more laser tools to help you with it. So now that it can read what we're trying to do here, I can highlight 1, 2, and 3. And I can go ahead and click rewrite. And I can say more descriptive. Let's see more descriptive and see what it gives me for information here. So Elizabeth walked slowly through the garden, enjoying the peacefulness. So it completely rewrote it so I don't have rain. More descriptive. And then this one actually said, she threw herself out into the gardens for a brisk walk, for which to settle her nerves, but was startled by heavy rainfall suddenly dripping through the leaves and pattering on the earth. Let's grab this beat. And I'm going to put this in here. So I like number 1. Number 2, Mr. Bennett called Elizabeth to his study to discuss an urgent matter. Mr. Bennett called Elizabeth to his study after breakfast and closed the door behind her with a determined click. Tapped his fingers against his desk as he organized his thoughts and waited for her to settle into one of the uncomfortable chairs. This is better. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to put that here. Now I'm just going to grab these 2 beats really fast so that we can see the difference in Story Engine as far as workflows go and why this matters. So coming back to my Story Engine beta, we have chapter 16 right here. I'm also going to get another chapter 16. Create the chapter. I'm going to copy these beats over. And I'm only going to change my 1 and 2 because that's what we're going to compare side by side. I'm not making any other changes right now. I'm just showing the power of the beefy beats. So I'm going to highlight 1 and 2, and I'm going to bring in the ones that we changed a little bit so that they are more specific. Now let's see what the difference is in best prose between running 1 and 2 as a stride with the weak beats versus the beefy beats. Let's see what we got. So best prose is going to go. And I'll immediately click pause. So this one is the weaker beats. These are the more simplistic beats. Elizabeth takes a walk in the garden to clear her mind, but is interrupted by a sudden downpour of rain. Mr. Bennett summons Elizabeth to his study to discuss an urgent matter. That's the only information it knows. Okay, so we're going to go, this is best prose, weak beats. Now, this is another thing for workflow, labeling your silos. If you label your silos, because as you change your modes and things like that, it changes it universally across your Story Engine. You won't remember which one of these was most accurate or which one was best prose. So over here now, is everyone understanding the experiment we're doing? Good. Any questions so far? Okay. So up here, I have my beefy beats where we have more specific instructions about it and everything like that. So I'm going to stay with the same model and I'm going to click best prose and I'm going to immediately press pause so that it doesn't run more than just stride 1 and 2. Now you may be asking, Elizabeth, if you were only going to test 1 and 2, why did you have all the rest of the beats in there? Because it reads all of the beats before it writes a stride. So it's important that the information that you have in your beats box is coherent for the rest of the scene or not at all, because otherwise it's going to take that information and take that into consideration when it's choosing tokens to generate. So let's compare and contrast. Elizabeth wandered the garden in solitude, her boots crunching on the gravel path as a chill crept into the air. The clouds had turned an ominous shade of gray, hinting at the coming storm. So right here, we have Elizabeth rushed outside, her heart pounding in her chest as the rain streamed down her face. The cool droplets were a welcome respite from the suffocating walls of Longbourn and the prying eyes of her sisters. Then the not so brief ones, we have a sharp crack of thunder rent the silence, and fat raindrops began to patter onto the leaves. Elizabeth quickened her pace, clutching her shawl around her shoulders, but the downpour came on swift and strong. This one is a little bit more detailed. Her boots squelched in the mud with every step as she walked faster and faster, trying to outrun the maelstrom of emotions swirling inside her. The betrayal cut like a knife, sharp and deep. How could he? After everything they had shared, all the tender moments and heartfelt conversations, it had meant nothing. So it's very different writing. Would you all agree? And the difference is that this beat focused on the character. Brisk walk with which to settle her nerves. This one just says clear her mind. So there's a very big difference between clearing one's mind and settling your nerves. So this one is a lot more emotionally charged. It's also picking up from the very more, like there's more specific language in here. Startled versus interrupted by a sudden downpour of rain. I mean, I also get interrupted by a dog barking. It's very different when it's a heavy rainfall. These are these little micro experiments that you can do. I highly recommend that you test them out because a lot of times when we're running with Story Engine, we try to make these big changes, and we change a lot of things. And then when we press generate, we don't really know for sure what was the difference, what was making the changes. This is how you like fine tune knob the writing information that comes out of Story Engine, is making just very small changes, comparing them to like a control or something like that. Like, this is how I was doing it. This is what I think I might need to do, so that you can kind of compare and contrast until you get and drill down, customizing Story Engine so it makes sense for you. Just like Z, what you were doing, where you were having your you guys have figured out something that works for you with your brain dump and your style box and your genre box and everything. That's fantastic. I love that everybody hacks these things. That's one of the things that I like to do with it too. So that's why I think that it's really, really cool. So let's talk about another thing into the workflow, unless there's any questions about this. Ask Claude to evaluate them and determine potential changes. Okay. Sharon says she still finds it faster to write it all myself, though. That is totally fair. Sudowrite works really great as an editing tool. So let's speak about that, an editing tool. One of the things that has changed in my methodologies, and what I will do is I will go ahead and grab some, no, I won't go grab that, but I'll just work with here. So if I'm reading this phrase right here, one of the things that I do is I edit inside of Story Engine, where I will go, okay, Elizabeth rushed outside, her heart pounding in her chest. She blinked away in the rain of tears, a sob catching in her throat. There in the distance was the old oak tree where they had sat together only yesterday, its gnarled branches. I want to see of long-born staff rushing in the rain to bring the livestock into the stables. So I'm literally giving myself an editing note of something that I want to do here. She quickened her pace. Her father waits waiting at the entrance. Lizzie, come sit by the fire. You'll catch your death out there. She shook her head mutely, droplets rolling off of her face. How could she sit still when the whole world was falling apart, when the man she'd given her heart to had betrayed her in the worst possible way? He did not. I mean, this is a hallucination. That's not actually what happened in the story, but I know you're upset, but the storm will not wait for us to make sense of what that scoundrel's actions. You must come inside. So I need to put a temper here and say, like, fix this. Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth had a misunderstanding. He is not a scoundrel. So once I have these editing notes to myself, I'm going to send it to Doc. And when I send it to Doc, the reason I put those editing notes in brackets is because when I come over to Sudowrite proper, here's my chapter 16. These editing brackets are right here for me to be able to start editing. This is a good workflow methodology until the laser tools and the story engines are united as one, because now I have my instructions. I can actually see the scoundrel right here. So I'm going to Control X that. So I need this information here. When I highlight that, it's only 135 words. Now I can click rewrite and I can go to customize and I can say rewrite to correct the plot. It was Elizabeth who messed up. And it was Elizabeth who messed up. It was Elizabeth who made the mistake. And now she is at odds with Mr. Darcy. With Darcy. Okay, so I'm going to click go and see if this will help fix that. So hopefully it'll change it for so it's her mistake and everything like that. No, if you have a, so answering in the chat, if you have a legacy account right now, Story Engine is not available on legacy. That was announced over 2 months ago in the Slack and everything, and information did go out. And the reason for that is because when legacy was created, the models that we're using for Story Engine did not exist at the time. And so there were parameters that were set up with your legacy account in terms of it was unlimited, but that also went out to everyone too. It was never actually unlimited. It was limited to about 200,000 words. Unfortunately, though, with the newer models and stuff, it's not sustainable. It wouldn't work. So the choices are we get to keep Sudowrite or Story Engine's not like in legacy. But so what a lot of legacy users have done is they keep their legacy account and then they usually get either the student one or the $19 one or the $29 one, basically, if they need Story Engine. And then they use their legacy account for anything else that they need. So correct the plots. Let's see what happens here. It was Elizabeth who made the mistake, and now she is at odds with Darcy. So see how it fixed it to her own foolishness had destroyed her world. When the man who had given his heart to her so faithfully had been spurned by a careless letter. So if you are running Story Engine and you have a little bit of plot points that are incorrect, you can do these kinds of things to change it. And now here's the other cool part of this workflow. So I can kind of bring it back full circle. I'm going to grab this information right here, mistake. Now, here's what's going to happen. When I come over here to right here. I think it was, yeah. So I'm just pasting it in. So I fixed it. So she shook her head mutely and everything like that. So by fixing it, now when I click continue, when it reads up a little bit, because it reads up a few hundred words to continue the storyline, I fixed it now so that Mr. Darcy is not a scoundrel. So that's not going to continue through the thing. So he reveals he received a letter. And now it'll have the context, hopefully, that for sharing her trouble. So let's see what happens here. So I'm going to click continue. And when I click continue, it's going to pick right up with 3, 4, because the beats are still vague. I did not fix the beats for 3 and 4 in this one. I've had a letter. Please hear me out. And so now it's bringing Mr. Wickham. And it's picking up. See, Mr. Darcy has asked for my consent to address you again in hopes that you'll allow him to explain the truth and win back your affections. So it stopped. It started to say Mr. Darcy is a scoundrel because I used the pause button and I fixed my prose and then I brought it back in. We're not going down that wrong path anymore. It's not like Mr. Darcy is a scoundrel, we hate him. This is how you can fix kind of in stream if it gets something wrong plot point. Like I usually press pause after the strides if I'm actually trying to validate as I go, rather than trying to fix it. Because if you have something wrong at the beginning of the scene, how many of you seen that it just continues making that mistake further on? Like it just keeps, it's like it doubles down on it. So yeah, that's really great, ZW. It's just a house with a blueprint. Did that workflow make sense to everybody about how I was going back and forth between Story Engine and Sudowrite proper? Any questions from anyone? Hi, North, go right ahead. Or are you
There
putting
we
it?
are.
Oh, good. You have a microphone. Hello.
Hi. I'm a little confused. The beats are controlling the generation of the chapter. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But if I pause it and fiddle with the chapter, what I've changed in the chapter then can override Sudowrite's interpretation of the beats.
It can influence the interpretation of the beats. So up here, these were very vague beats. These would be beats that any regular user of Sudowrite would say bad beats because they're not beefy. They're very wimpy. They're very thin. Mr. Bennett reveals that he has received a letter from Mr. Darcy, leaving him deeply concerned. Concerned about what? What did the letter say? Do you see how that's very open-ended on how that could be interpreted?
Okay. So is there a way to generate beefier beats?
Not yet. That prompting is in the pipeline. I've already submitted it and everything that's coming, but there's a lot of coding on the back end. So this is why people either write their own beats or they generate the beats and then they beef them up themselves by making changes to them. Or the example I just showed where you could copy and paste it into Sudowrite. If you're stumped and you don't want to do it, you can use that rewrite feature to say that you want more details there.
Okay. So the beefier the beats, the beefier the chapter.
The beefier the beats, the more specific the chapter prose is.
More specific. Okay.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
Yep. Great questions. Thank you.
Is there anything other than the beats that influences the chapter?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So when you hover over the question mark right here, it'll tell you all of the boxes that it's
Oh,
looking
okay.
at. And so this is something that ZW was sharing that Nicole had shared with him. Nicole is one of the ambassadors and she does author hours. She's amazing. She's one of the people who hacks hard on Story Engine all the time as well. So you can kind of press the question, genre, style, characters, this chapter's beats. I've been teaching for months now. You can change your character box to update your characters as you move along in the story so that their characterization is reflected in the prose, their growth, so to speak. And then ZW just shared how they hack the style box basically to impact the beats or impact the prose by putting words in there like tragedy and then fast action and all of that. And it's interpreting that into when it's generating the prose as well.
Okay. So is there a weighting? Like, does it put,
Nope.
they're all equal?
Pretty much. The only way that you can weight something with AI is repetition. So the more times it's in there, the more it's going to go, oh, that's important. All caps makes a difference. If we add a number to it, like this first, then that, then that, then that, then it'll prioritize that. But yeah, everything, as far as the AI is concerned, every token is equal to every other token that's in the prompt, unless there's some other special sauce that's saying, you know, this is the most important thing is this, but you can't have a bunch of most important things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Sharon, you had a question?
Yeah, so I was saying that too beefy has caused me problems too, though,
Yes.
where it just it goes off the rails. It doesn't seem to know what to do with it.
So if you have the one caveat on beefy beats, everyone, this thing wrote for a beat 421 words. I've seen people, their two beats here has like 500 words. The AI is not going to be able to take 500 words and turn it into 400 words without truncating things. If you're going to write beats that are like hundreds of words long or too much information, it's just too much information for the small amount that it's going to write. Does that make sense, Sharon?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I would recommend you do is write your beefy beats the way that you're naturally doing it, where it's got too much information, and then get a cup of coffee, come back and read through it critically to see where the action changes. And every time the action changes, just press enter and make that a new beat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
So you want each beat, number one needs to be able to do 100 to 150 words. Number two needs to do about 100 to 150 words. When those are combined, that's where you get that 300 to 400 words inside of the prose box.
Yeah, because I've been thinking to myself, I'm taking 2,000 words to generate 400. This makes no sense to me. I might as well
Exactly.
write the 2,000 words myself.
Exactly. So guys, if you have a beatbox here that you're getting into the 2,000 words, I have the 1 and 2 is 87 words. So it's about 50 to 100 words. I would say 100 words is probably the max for a beat for best practices. One beat is 100 to 200 words, Charlotte. So whatever would usually happen in your book in 100 to 200 words, that's what a beat should be. So if 100 for me is 2, then 2,000 words is a lot of beats. The other thing you can do is if you don't want to have a beefy beat and you're putting more information in here, you can actually put information on how it writes. So I could actually put in here in a bracket, and I can say Elizabeth's internal monologue should be set off ... and she uses many quotes from Shakespeare to process her own feelings. All right. And so once I put that in there, let me go ahead and create chapter 16. I'm going to paste that over just so that we can compare and contrast here. So best prose again, on the road again. Look at that. It set it off and it brought in some Shakespeare quotes. Maybe not actual Shakespeare quotes. You'd have to check that, but it sure sounds Shakespeare-y to me. And so in that sense, what I did was I added another 20 words to the instructions for the beat, but it didn't add more plot. Does that make sense to everyone? So your plot is really kind of limited to 150 to 200 words. And then the extra space inside of beats, you can use it to give, oh, I didn't pause it. We're going to get the whole scene. You can actually use it to get a lot of information. Like you can actually really change. Those of you who are asking for a beats class, I go very deep into beats and story engine and the story engine tactics class, which is on Wednesdays at 5:30 for the month of July. If you can't make it, there are already classes up on YouTube for that class, especially that we look at working with a work in progress that's already in the middle. That's where I really tackle that in that class. All right, I'm curious if this is actually Shakespeare. What Shakespeare play is this from? It's from Hamlet. So Hamlet's not one of my favorites. So I don't feel bad that I didn't know it. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. So there we go. All right. So did everyone learn something workflow wise that they can take and capitalize this week in their writing projects?
Yes.
And look at us, we stayed at an hour. I'm really impressed. This is the most we've done so far. All right, any last questions?
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome. The medicine's kicked in, so now I feel a little bit better, but I'm still just gonna go lay down on the couch. where it's cooler, because we have an AC unit down there. Thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone so much for coming. You can sign up for more classes at Loom. Oh, go ahead, Charlotte, did you have a question?
It wasn't a question. It was just, if you do have Scrivener, I found that their name generator does a much better job of giving you unique names than the character box in Sudowrite. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Okay, I have another question. What do you mean you can change this in ChatGPT? What is the question on that, Em? I'm not sure what you're asking for. Change what? Oh, the beats. Sure. What is not out yet? Oh, yes, Claude 2 is coming. So let's use some Claude 2 and ChatGPT to fix the beats. So coming over into here, and usually I give it more information when I do this. So this is just an example, everyone. I'm going to grab this information. usually I grab the actual components of characters and outline when I'm doing this. And you guys can see this actually on YouTube on the Feature Fiction Academy channel, where I show in the write-a-thon when I wrote 54,000 words using Story Engine in basically a 24-hour period between Friday and Saturday. Yeah. Earlier today for a Feature Fiction Academy lab, we wrote 10,000 words in an hour. We timed ourselves on a cozy mystery, no less, with Claude 2. So this stuff is coming down. The stuff that's coming down the pipeline is very exciting. It's also, we also all decided we want a blanket for it right now. There's just days like that. So in ChatGPT, what you can do, where is my ChatGPT? It's over here. I'm going to use 4 for this. Read this. And I put my dinkus in, and I'm going to say, please rewrite each step with more instructions for the AI to write the scene. Each number equals about 200 words of novel manuscript. Make sure the scene keeps up the tension and the despair that Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are on the outs. Okay, so there we go. Now it really would need more information. And now all of a sudden I've got better beats right here where they're, and this is coming, by the way. You're going to start getting better beats like this in Story Engine very soon. But you can already see where it's starting to give a little bit better, more specificity, so that as the senior writing partner, I can go showcase his warmth and understanding demeanor. If that's not correct for Mr. Bennett's characterization, and this is why I usually give the character list as well, then I would change that, obviously. If he's cold and aloof and he doesn't understand these women going frantic or whatever, then that's what I would do. So that's now the reason why I don't necessarily write with ChatGPT 4 is because watch what happens. Great. Write that scene step by step. You do something like this, you're probably going to only get, yeah, you get summary. You can kind of get it to go, okay, no numbers, just write the novel manuscript. So now I don't have those numbers anymore. And this is why Story Engine, why Story Engine was created. I mean, we were manually, a group of authors of us were manually doing this back at the beginning of the year. And it was frustrating because I knew I could get the stuff out of ChatGPT, but it just required so many prompts, so many sequences and things like that. And so Story Engine makes that a heck of a lot faster. You know, this is just blah. I mean, it's great. It's summarized, but it's very on the nose. And this is the difference. So that's 579 words. How many of you would be very, like, who the heck can get 579 words out of 12 beats in Story Engine? Doesn't exist, right? And that's where Story Engine comes. Story Engine is just marvelous, because here's where Story Engine, not that one, this one. If I go into Story Engine, whoopsies. And even without the beefier beats, this one only ran through 5, 6. So it only ran through half of the beats, and it wrote 1,200 words, 1192. So which one do you want as a writer? You want 1,200 or you want 579, and then you're playing the game. And that's what you have to do here. You have to go, great. Oops. You know, add more word or add more dialogue. Make it longer. And here you can see I'm sitting there and it's like, okay. And unfortunately, when you do this, half of the time, it'll start cutting things. It'll start changing things. It won't, because it only has a context window. I agree, Sharon. More words of crap isn't necessarily better. That's why it really matters to make sure that you can get out of Story Engine what you can use. When I did my write-a-thon, I ran best prose and I ran most accurate on the same scene. People watched me kit bash and grab pieces of it, and then I also wrote to it because, and I explained in that moment that I was inspired by ideas from what was there. It wasn't that I necessarily was like, this is wrong, this is bad. The AI did exactly what I asked it to do, but I got a better idea by seeing that vomit draft. That's what happens for me in my writing process. I can't say that that's what's going to happen for everybody else, but it took 2 hours because I was explaining as I went for me to take, let me see, that would be it would be an alpha. I think this is alpha because this has 17. So all the way over here where I have these chapter ones were actually kit bashed by me live. This specific one live on camera, 3,000 words was one of them. And then the other one was 2,500. So I actually kit bashed 2,500 words. It took me 2 hours to go through and edit. And I ended up with like 3,600 words at the end, or 3,300 words at the end. So it was me bringing 50% of the words typing in, and then the 2 models being, grabbing the best of each one because they had run the strides. This was running 2 different models, best prose and most accurate. So here's the kit bash of 2780, and then most accurate, and then the best prose. So it's 2,000 and 2,500. This kit bash is 2780. And you can see where I put my editing marks in here. And it actually, but it correlates to, so that kit bash 2780 came in here. Here's the final one. The final one ended up at 3,577 words. So it took me 2 hours to go from 2,000 words plus me to get 3,500 words that were polished, and it's a bunch of different things. So any questions about, so I just want to say these workflows I'm sharing, some of them they're ones that I actually use. So
Elizabeth, just a quick comment on that.
Yep.
What you call kit bashing, where you 2 separate lengthy pieces of prose that you want to compare. One thing I tried a few times just to see how well it would work, it may not be of interest to anyone else, but it worked for me. I took the prose, put it into Word from each of the different sources, best prose versus most accurate. So I put them into 2 separate Word documents, and I just simply numbered them. So I went in and just selected all the text and auto numbered them, just like you would number a list, list number. So you end up with every paragraph with a unique number. I use Speechify to read the prose back to me so I could relax and listen to it instead of me reading it. So relax and listen to it. And what I did, because it reads the number as well, I could make a note of what I thought were good paragraphs and what were poor paragraphs.
Oh, I see. So you just asked it to number the paragraphs for you. So yeah, it said 36 and it read it to you and you're like, yep, write down 36 and keep it.
Just select it all and just go into Word and just say, create a numbered list, and it just numbers everything.
That is a great idea.
And then decide as you're listening which are good and which are bad. Which you say, well, I'll never use that ever again. But that's a really good phrasing, and it's really good. And I color coded them. So I put green for the ones I liked and red for the ones I didn't like. It doesn't take 5 minutes to do. And then when you've got 2 sets of prose next to each other on 2 separate screens, you can very quickly go down and say, well, actually, let's try merging just the green paragraphs. Forget the red. I don't like them. They don't really work. They're not part of the story. But let's just do them in sequence as you go down, and let's see if you could pull those together. And it actually did quite a good job. So if you only use 2 colors, just red and green, you could do a full set of traffic lights, green, amber, and red maybe, but just the 2 colors are enough. But just the numbering was so quick. The color coding takes you 5 to 10 minutes, and it's a very quick way of doing what you call kit bashing. I'd never tried kit bashing before until you mentioned it. So I thought, it's a difficult one to do. How do you decide which ones you're going to keep, which one? But if you do that, it's quite.
So I actually have some prompts on Facebook or on YouTube that I show where I use Playground, and I make the AI actually read the selections and decide what's best and give me a finalized draft, and then I just evaluate that. That's another way that you can speed it up too.
Oh, that's good. If you can do it with a prompt, it'd be much better.
Yes, with a prompt, absolutely. Or what you're
have a
looking
prompt
for.
that numbers them and color codes. That would be really good for me.
No,
So if you could-
numbers and color codes. I wish I had it in Sudowrite, but just to be clear, because there was a question, Rael is saying that he took it to Word and used Speechify in Word. For the person who says Speechify would not work inside of the Sudowrite browser. He's using it
Definitely, yeah,
inside
it's
of a Word
yeah,
document.
Yeah, you have to take it outside, but you can
Yeah.
put it in a PDF. It doesn't have to be Word, so you can. I mean, Speechify will read lots of things. It doesn't do very well in Sudowrite, but yeah, outside of Sudowrite. It's fine.
Trust me, I want a whole suite of editing tools called Pseudo Edit that does a lot of these
Yeah.
things that we're asking for, honestly.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah.
Menon.
Yeah, it works. All you have to do is you have to highlight everything you want to be read to you and click on the play button and it's going to read everything you highlight.
Yeah, that's what I use. Yeah, that's right. So I don't read the whole prose all in one go. I just take, a few paragraphs at a time, let it read those, color code those, then go on to the next. And once I've color coded them, I know they're done. So I just work through everything in black has to be green and red by the end of the process. But yeah, just do them in blocks. Yeah, it's simpler that way. And it's so much easier if you have speech if I read it than trying to do it reading and comprehending it. So it's better to listen to it and just say, oh, that number's a green one, and make a quick note. 1 is green, 3 is red, just as you go, and then go and code it afterwards. So as you hear it read the number, make a note of whether it's green or red and just go back and do the color coding after.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I am going to go ahead and bow out. I think that this is fantastic, and thank you for everyone who shared their tips. Z, Rael, Manon, Melissa in chat, anyone in chat. I know Lynn was sharing stuff. If I'm not saying your name, it's not that I don't want to call on you and say you were wonderful. Everybody was wonderful. I really do appreciate the spirit of sharing that we have in this community. I think it's really important. I had kind of a very rough clubhouse yesterday that I was on, and I had someone come on and say, what classes have you taken on AI? You're leading people astray. And I was so angry in the moment. I said, I write the classes on AI. So that was there is a lot of vitriol out there, and there's not enough of us who are working together for us to start putting daggers at each other. So I really do appreciate that everybody is in a, we're in this together, working together, and here's a tip and everything like that. So please share tips and tricks on the Slack. Please keep working together. Please come to author hours. You can find that link in lou.ma/Sudowrite. I have more classes here in July that we're working on, and I'm not so sure exactly what my schedule will be for August, but we'll get there. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Good luck with your writing project.
Get better.
Go lie down.
Thanks. Take
Yeah,
care.
lie down.
Go lie down.